So we're going to have a look at dividing equations and solving ones that have got divisions in them or fractions in them. Now, when it's written like this, it looks quite straightforward in some respects because we know that this 3 here is dividing everything at this side by 3. Part of the problem with algebra, if you like, is knowing what it all means. Once you've kind of decoded it, and broken it down into the different parts, you then know what you can and can't do to move your terms or your variables or your coefficients about. So we know that this is dividing this here. Now to solve the equation, we know that we need to move all our letters onto one side and all our numbers onto another side. But we can't actually reach our variable, our x, at the moment because it's sat on top of this division. So we can't reach it. So what we need to do is, first of all, we need to remove this 3 so that we can then get to our x minus 2. It's a bit like the x minus 2 being inside the brackets and us not being able to reach it unless we expand the brackets. So to remove this 3, as it's dividing, we need to times both sides by 3. Okay, so that now cancels out the division. So we are left with x minus 2, and then we times the 15 by 3, so that gives us 45. Now we can get to the x. So I would move the 2 across from this side to this side. It doesn't make any sense moving the x over because then we'd have to move the 45. So to do it in the minimum amount of steps, simply moving the 2 over would be easier than moving the x and then moving the 45. So this is a negative 2, so it's x minus 2, or x subtract 2. So the inverse of that is adding. So whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. Sorry, don't know why I put that. So this cancels that out, and we're left with x, and then add to the 45 equals 47. And that is our answer. Now this is a slightly different looking problem, but on some respects is saying exactly the same thing. So understanding again what this equation is telling us, this quarter is multiplying the x and then we're adding 3 to it, and that all equals 12. So both these sides equal 12. So the way we can start this, you could do it 2 ways in some respects. You can either move the 3 over to the right hand side, and as this is a positive 3, we need to minus it. So we're subtracting 3 from both sides, and that becomes 1/4 x equals 9. Okay. Then to remove our quarter x, well, multiplying by a quarter is the same as dividing by 4. And I showed you on the slide why that was the case, why it is the same as dividing by 4. So if we're dividing by 4, we can times both sides by 4. And if you also think about it, if we times a quarter by 4, we're left with 1. So that in effect becomes 1 in front of the x. And we need to do the same to the other side. So we also need to times the 9 by 4. So we're left with x equals 36. Now the other way we could think about it, and it might be an idea just to start playing around with this idea because it will become useful later on as things get more complicated, is to times through by 4. So if we start with the equation again, if we think about it, we could times through by 4 to get rid of this 1/4 before we've moved the 3 across. So if we times by 4, we have to times this bit by 4, but we also have to times the positive 3 by 4, as well as the 12, because it's not like the brackets where it's inside the brackets. It's a separate term all on its own. So we have to times everything through by 4. And that leaves us with x plus 12 equals 48. Now we can solve as normal. So the simplest thing to do would be to move the 12 across, because we don't want to move the x, because then we'd have to move the 48. It's a positive 12, so we subtract 12 from both sides, and that leaves us with x equals 36. And you can see that gives us the same answer as we achieved up here. And that was by, instead of moving the 3 across as the first step, we got rid of the 1/4 by timesing through by 4, and then we could solve as normal. And that can be quite a useful process to use later on as things get a bit more complicated, is timesing through by the number.